Sanibonani, Alonde Jabalala, Umamshengu Okhulumayo, and I just want to welcome you to my channel. This is the first episode that will be airing under the legal series content. First things first, if you have not subscribed, please do so because I guarantee you that we'll be providing insightful information. That's number one. And I am so excited with regards to what I will be discussing today because it's actually my speciality. So let me just give you a background. So I am an admitted attorney of the High Court of South Africa, Ngingumeli, and I hold a Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of the Witwatersrand. I also hold a Master of Laws degree specializing in business law from KZN, and I also hold a Master of Business Administration and MBA from Management College of South Africa, which is Mancosa. That is why I'm saying I specialize in this field. I'm a corporate attorney. I draft contracts. I review contracts. I vet contracts. So I understand exactly what this topic means to me. And I just want to give you guys an overview. So, ngaphandle nje kokuchitha isikhathi asihlale nodabeni. Guys, there is something that people, or most commonly known, that people don't do. They do not read their contracts. Like, in all honesty, can you just confirm and say you read your employment contracts thoroughly from the first page up until the last page? Number one. Number two, did you understand all the clauses there? Or maybe you were just too excited, you just got a job and you just like, la guys, unemployment rate in South Africa is very high. So the minute you get a job, you just want to sign on the dotted line, okay? And again, besides, even if you are looking for employment, what about if you are a company? You run a business, so you are the director or the duly authorized personnel to be signing off agreements. But did you actually read? I'm asking this because in most cases, my SMMEs, small businesses, they get so excited when they receive, for example, a tender. I'm just going to make an example, a tender. So a tender, it has been advertised and you bid it and then, luckily you got it. But then now there are T's and C's or terms and conditions on that contract that you actually need to abide by. Even, for example, the person or the company that you guys will be contracting with. Let me first just define what is a contract. What is a contract? A contract is basically an agreement entered into with the intention of creating a legally binding obligation. Intention. So number one, mina nawe fanele sazi ukuthi lento esizoyenza siyayenza ngempela. So there has to be an intention and an offer and an acceptance, basically. Because, for example, someone is offering you employment, that's an offer, you accept, there's an intention that we need your services here at the company, etc., etc. So that is basically what a contract is. So another thing that I just want to highlight to you guys, that a contract does not necessarily have to be in writing. Obviously, there are exceptions to the rule. Let me tell you one thing about law. It is not just black and white. There's some gray area in between. They'll say such and such, just like this one, for example, a contract does not have to be in writing, but there's an exception. For example, an agreement to sell immovable property, your houses, your buildings, your rental apartments, etc., land, as I said, the building, suretyship agreements, antenuptial contracts in terms of marriages. Unfortunately, those ones, they actually have to be in writing. So those are the exceptions to the rule. Okay, leases over a period of 10 years, etc., etc. So for those ones, we'll discuss them later on the channel. Just for now, I just wanted to highlight to you guys, ukuthi inkontilaki does not necessarily have to be in writing. So, mina nawe, yes, mina nawe, wena lo ngilalele njengamanje. Ngicela manje ngithi mina ngicela ukulungisa, let me make an example. Yes, I want to change my kitchen scheme, right? And I'm on Facebook, right? So I see these beautiful companies when they're advertising their carpentry work and all the cabinets that they've been doing, etc., etc. So I'm gonna make an example of something that we normally, as that we come across by, especially on social media, because I've seen an advert, I start DMing you, and then I get your WhatsApp terms, etc., etc., and then siyakhuluma. or even we meet in person. But when we meet in person, I'm asking all of those businesses, how many of you do you actually give the client a contract? To say, this is my contract. You and I actually stated, Duguti, you know what, ufuna ukwenza ama-built-in, you want to use super gloss, you want to use this material, but basically it's going to cost you 150,000 rands for me to do the whole kitchen scheme. Nan. So that contract, for example, will be outlining ukuthi the duration. Obviously, in most cases, you have to use your discretion. But in most cases, guys, contracts do have a duration. Because the reason why they have a duration, what if I'm planning on turning this place into an Airbnb by Good Friday? So if you and I contract with one another, and you guarantee me before Good Friday this will be done, but then actually you find out by the time Good Friday actually gets here, the building it's halfway done. So that is why the terms that are stipulated on the contract, note. If you know what you will not make it within 2 weeks, if I request for your services now, then you need to make sure that that is noted on your terms. You just highlight there's a discretion here and you will push. However, due to the fact that some stores already are closing and there's a shortage of material, for example, etc., etc. But back to this example. When I ask somebody to do built-ins for me, or for example, when you asked somebody to do tiling in your house, to even build you a house, to change your windows to aluminiums, style, we up with it. If something is changing, we're changing with the style. You no longer like your brown cabinets. You now want the whites, the super gloss, the matte look, etc., etc. Did you ever have a contract with that contractor? I know. Did you ever have a contract with that person? Did you have a contract with your builder one? How many builders, and this has got nothing to do, we're not against builders, but I'm just saying, how many builders have failed to deliver, whereby you usuyashintsha manje from builder A to builder B. By the time your house was finished, maybe it was built by 4 people. Umuntu waqala ifoundation, wamnikeza ihalf imali, abanye bahamba nayo futhi, mase kufana abuye because in most cases we know how they do it. They do a foundation in house A, B, C, D. They come back inyuke, etc., etc. So now I'm asking you, how many of you mina ngacela umuntu azongilungisela ama-built-in? Yes, guys, ngakhokha imali, but I never got value for my money because you know why? Wavele wanyamalala, or wawenza umsebenzi, but definitely not to the satisfaction. They didn't fix the sink, or they didn't do any plumbing, even though we had mentioned they're going to do plumbing, they're going to do tiling. We have been entering into contracts all along. Yabo. That is a contract. Number one, okay? You guys do have the capacity to enter into agreements. We will look at the requirements of a contract later on. But I'm just saying, there was an offer, there was an acceptance, there's intention, and that has created a legally binding obligation. You and I don't have to stipulate those terms into writing. There is a contract. Oral contracts are valid, but it is always advisable that you reduce things to writing, so that tomorrow if you and I are having a dispute, you're not going to say, no, I never agreed to the fact that I'm actually going to do tiling. I said you can buy tiles and get a tiler to do tiles. I'm only doing the cupboards. But I'm of the impression that you're still going to do tiling and then you're going to do plumbing, So all of those things, you stipulate them on a contract, so that if somebody were to breach that contract or go against that contract, you can therefore seek specific performance or sue for breach. But you have to show that you have been materially, something has happened to you. That is why, for example, you were affected materially. As I've mentioned with that Airbnb example, on Good Friday, I would have advertised, I would have projected that the house would have been fully booked for Good Friday. I would have made approximately 10,000 rands. So by you delaying this, you've actually costed me 10,000 rands. So do you see, that is now when people are able to quantify, they can go to court. It becomes a long process. But I'm just asking you, Angel, right now, how many of you guys have been affected in such a way with the delays have actually costed you money, But then now, do you know what you have a right? If somebody breaches it, that is why between you and I, even me as an individual and also as a company, I'm not going to use those tender the tender contracts that I made an example of. If you receive a tender, that is why you have to ensure, Gucci, if you know you can't deliver, you request for an extension, okay? I deal with those people request for extensions and say, you know what, the supplier is being delayed, I hereby request an extension. And then in most cases, government will tell you, you will extend up until this day, So that should you fail, they can put you to specifically perform under specific performance, or you only deliver half, and then they also provide you with an extra extension, but then you're not doing anything. So Lena, what I'm trying to show you is reading contracts or having contracts is of vital importance, because you and I are definitely not going to remember all clauses by head, and this doesn't only go to our service level agreements or service agreements, employment contracts, lease agreements, agency agreements, confidential agreements, terms and conditions. How many of us, when we want to get a cell phone contract with a specific network service provider, you go online, you apply for a contract, that's what they call them. It's a contract because you want to pay by premiums or monthly installments. And then they just say, do you accept? Like, you have to agree to the T's and C's. Have you read those T's and C's? Like, in all honesty, you see that small written text. In most cases, we do not read. We don't read, we just tick. Fast forward, should you be in a legal predicament, you are calling the call center, you are telling them company A is not providing with A, B, C, etc. And then they say, you know what? The T's and C's actually specify that. And guys, let me tell you what, terms and conditions, the font is so tiny and it's so difficult to read this. But I'm just saying, in most cases, we just say, oh, nah. Everyone just clicks that box and says, fine. Hence, I've asked you, Guti, do you understand all the clauses on your employment contracts? Do you have a copy of your employment contract? We're still going to deal with employment law in the long run. But now I just wanted to do an icebreaker with contracts and just grab your attention. Guti, even if it's 2 pages or 1 page, that document has the power. It has the power. But as I mentioned, it doesn't necessarily have to be a document unless as per the specified exclusions that I mentioned. But in this case, request your contracts. It does no harm. It actually does no harm if you request for contracts. Instead, I feel like it actually makes your business easier, because you're able to say, oh, okay, these are the clauses. This is what we need to abide to. This is the due date. These are the obligations that we need to provide. This is what the other party still needs to do. It's easier to prove an existence of a written contract. They also provide individuals and businesses with the expectations, because the legal document will state your expectations, what is needed from you, so that you are in agreement and then you understand. Remember, guys, when a contract is there, you need to initial each and every page and sign on the last page. So by you placing your initials, it means that you acknowledge that you've read it and you understand it. Okay? And then if a party breaches one of those terms, then there are consequences or steps that you can take to ensure they act on that breach. That's another reason why it is important to reduce contracts to handwriting. But now, if it's an oral contract and I've breached it, it's he said, she said. You say, no, you said you're going to perform on this day. You said you're going to do my tiling. I'll say, no, I didn't say I'm going to do your tiling. I said, I know a tiler. I know somebody who does tiling, and they said they will charge you on their own, like it's a separate invoice. So it ends up being a he said, she said. Maybe if you have proof via WhatsApp text, voice note, you can use it in court. But if you have a contract, you are trying to bypass all of those nitty-gritties and just have a solid document. And that's what I do. That's my job, looking at contracts, making sure that the business is being run efficiently, because we also utilize commercial agreements, ensuring that the company is not at risk. Or even if I'm reviewing your contracts, for example, you are running a company, ensuring that you as well are not at risk. So that is the vital point of having contracts just in general. Also, in terms of a business now, They protect the business. You know, if you are an SMME, you shouldn't run your business like a spaza shop. Even though someone would think it's a small, medium enterprise, no, you should still run it as a business. And I just want to tell you right now that I do offer those services. Should you actually need a contract, a template, you know, just I'll link up my email address below. Hit me up via email. It's alwandechabalala@outlook.com. But definitely I'll make sure that I link my email address. You need to ensure that you have got even a contract even with your service providers. You know, your own service providers. Like, for example, even if you get that contract for a tender, if you don't understand the terms, request somebody who has the abilities, the legal expertise to review the agreement for you. If uthole umsebenzi and I'll understand amanye ama-clauses, let me tell you one thing, guys. In most cases, when they call you, they'll call you in. It will be your first day, and then they'll give you your contract expecting you to sign it by the end of business day. You can request time before you sign that contract. Just state, I need a day, I want to read. You know, that is why I'm saying, therefore, that's when you consult and say, I don't understand this clause. What does it mean? You know, and then you are able to say, okay, this is what basically my contract is. And then once you hand over the signed document, you ought to get a copy or even an original, depends, you know, but you must have like a copy. How many, and I'm asking this again, when last did you see your employment contract? Some only saw them when they started. They're gonna, especially, this is usually done to factory workers. I've dealt with so many factory workers when they're complaining, they like, when they request a contract, all of a sudden it becomes a huge woo-ha. You know, it's like your supervisor, like, what are you gonna do with the contract? Also, when signing a contract, guys, a contract is my right to have, okay? So make sure those are the things that you request for and put it on email. Put it on email that you're actually requesting for a contract. You know, don't just request it by word of mouth, because 10 years shall pass, you'll still be requesting it by word of mouth. You have no paper trail, you've got no proof. Okay, but if you put it on email, it's easier for you to say, I've requested for it. Should you ever even be dismissed for whatever, when your case is ongoing at the CCMA, you say there are some clauses that I don't understand or wanted to look at, but I've got no contracts. Okay, I'm not being provided with a contract. But I just want to highlight to you that if you have HR in your business, you don't even have to request it from the supervisor. Supervisor's got nothing to do with your contracts. HR is the correct department. Request it from HR. HR ought to give you a contract. Okay. The benefits of having an experienced attorney or legal official or person having to look at the terms of the contracts or even review, vet, or even draft for you gives you a peace of mind and saves you a cost of a lengthy and expensive litigation in the future. Kunodokotela abalapha ezimpilo, abameli balapha ngokwezomthetho, you know, and prevention is always better than cure. Awufuni ukuthi izinto sezingahambanga kahle sekufanele kulungise. Yes, kuzolunga kwezinye engalungi, kwezinye futhi thatha isikhathi. But mawubona ukuthi no, I actually want to bypass this. Mina yonke into yami I want it done to the T. That's the need. That's why you need somebody to review it. And guys, invest in your businesses. You know, invest in a business. If you are buying equipment for a business, if you are buying ABC, you are buying furniture, you have to hire personnel if you don't have that assistance. For example, you need an accountant, right? You're not doing your own finances. So if you have an accountant, or even if you're outsourcing, there are many accounting firms, you outsource for them to do your books. You do the same with agreements. You get into a relationship with, for example, a person like myself, an attorney, or that law firm. Then you're like, okay, this is what you and I will be doing. I need you to be reviewing these documents because I do not understand the legal jargon. And then it's also gonna save you as the company, because as a company, the company takes decisions. If one of your employees sues you, you can just request for an opinion. Where do you stand? So if I can, for example, see and be like, no, technically the employee is okay, is right. So if this were actually to go to court, it's a gamble. You can never think ukuthi you like it's gonna go ngendlela. There are so many cases where we think this one is just like, we all know. But then it gets appealed, and on appeal, the decision now changes. So that is why I'm saying sometimes to save the legal costs, because attorneys are expensive. A high in court might just cost you almost 4,000 rands for 3 hours or 2. Yeah, but depends how much they charge you per hour. If they have to spend the whole day in court, that's like 15,000 rands plus. So tell me, do you honestly want to be spending so much money when you can just be consulting already? Maybe you start having a retainer. As I said, you want them to review some agreements. And therefore you say, okay, I understand this clause now. Okay. But now I'm saying, if you are bypassing an attorney or an accountant, if you bypass an accountant and they don't do your books, you're gonna have a problem with SARS. So it's the same thing. One way or another, it indirectly affects you. Okwamanje, if you're still cruising because you're like, oh no, I can get away with it. Oh no. Okay. But in the long run, and if you want your business to grow, as I mentioned, you should not treat it as like a spaza. You should treat it as a business. If you treat it as a business, your employees must have contracts. Stop hiring people by word of mouth. They must have contracts. Yabo. And that is why I asked Uguti, if you're working and you don't have a contract, yes, you can still prove Uguti, like, I've received a salary, I come to work, even my timesheet is stamped, but I don't have a contract, because therefore someone might argue and say, no, if there's no contract, you're not employed. No, you are employed there. We've mentioned Uguti, it does not actually have to be written, even though it is best if your employment contract is there in writing. But I'm just saying, Uguti, even if it's a freelance, if you know what you got freelancers, because your business is still small, you don't have the capacity to hire somebody permanently or even on contract, that freelance thing will assist you, because even freelancers, when they don't deliver, you have to put them to as per the contract, So that's exactly why I felt like this is a beautiful icebreaker, because it makes one question. And I love the fact that we are now diving into businesses. You might be working full-time, you might be having a beautiful, comfortable job, but you have a side hustle. So on that side hustle of yours, you still need to abide as per the contracts. How many times have you've catered for somebody, and then on the day of the wedding or members or whatever function, when you're done, they don't pay you? When somebody has provided a service for you, it's vital that you pay, okay? Because you are affecting a business. And I just want to say, if this person takes this to court, they can actually put the cost on you, litigation costs, because the court will be like, no, they've performed. So why didn't you pay for services? Okay, fine, pay for the services plus pay for all the attorney fee costs. Because you took this matter to court, you dragged it. Like, when instead of you paying the service provider that supplied you with that service, you decided to run away with it. So guys, I want to now go back to this. Even if you don't have a contract, a recent contract, but those WhatsApp texts, that social media dialogue or DM via TikTok, Instagram that you guys were having, that will suffice or add on to the fact that you guys had a legally binding agreement, but then one party now has failed to act, for example, to pay you when you have provided the services. So there is the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act, the ACTA, wherein like all the electronic messages, whether it be SMS, WhatsApp, Facebook, they can constitute a contract if you can prove. And again, they've been case law. Some have been appealed, whereby now they're saying no, they don't form contracts. But I'm saying you don't want to put yourself in a jinx. Because if I, for example, I'm doing everything via WhatsApp, I pay you and you confirm, you give me the invoice via WhatsApp with the cardboard example, There was an intention, there was an offer, there was an acceptance. When you sent me the invoice and I accepted that, yes, with this invoice, I'm okay with it. You're going to do my kitchen cupboards for 150 rands. You know, on the invoice, you actually listed what you're going to do. You're going to do tiling, you're going to do plumbing, you're going to affix new features. For example, I want a matte black tab, I want a matte sink, a black sink. So all of those things were listed. So we can't now just say there was no contract, there was no agreement, just because you feel like it needs to be in a document. We can argue and state we are now digital, you know. This is the digital era. I don't necessarily now have to be like, oh, I need to put like type whatever. I mean, write something. But this suffices. And then now this goes back to, as I stated, you don't affix your signature where you don't understand or where you've never read something. Guys, how many of you just sign documents you haven't read? And I'm going to go back to this because there are certain individuals wherein I'm going to use our mothers and grandmothers and auntie or mamncane, wherein if they are working as domestic workers, you know, what usually happens, ubasi ufika ne document athi sign. Umama sign and understand. In the long run, you find out that that was actually a formation of a company. This person is running a company, but they don't know anything. How many domestic workers have got companies? But you know this BBB thing, people are using us as a front now. So that is why I'm saying before you sign, just say, can I take it home and read it? Because now, when you want to apply for a grant, your things are not going well. Because the government is saying, Aibo, this person is generating a turnover of 5 million per annum and they want to apply for a social grant in Jan because that person is a director in that company. So do you see how not reading or affixing your signature where you don't know when you don't know what is written there? Okay, I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for, but this one shall do. You see, if you sign a contract and then you initial and there are blank spaces like this, you are setting yourself up for failure. There should be no blank spaces. You should either cross out what is not applicable, cross it out, put NA, cross it out, cross it out, cross it out, then sign an initial at the bottom. Or sign where it says sign, and then if from the previous page, then you just initial. And then the same goes if, for example, the contract ends up until here. Let's just say this contract ends up until here. There's nothing else here. You need to scratch here. Because you want to make sure that whoever takes this contract and keeps it for record keeping, obviously you'll have another copy, they do not edit. Guys, with technology and AI, a contract can end up until here. Here, literally here. But people will be able to make sure that they affix some new written text and then your signature is only at the bottom. So that is why when you are signing, you just have to ensure that there's no space. There's no space. There's no unwanted space. And if there is space, you cross it out. Say NA, you scratch it out. If there's just that blank space after you've signed, you also scratch it out. Because I know even with wills, they make sure you don't add anything else. You know, guys, fraud is committed out there. Fraud is committed out there. That is why I'm saying this, you know. So, for today, we're done. We've come to an end for today. But make sure that, guys, you're subscriber. Please subscribe. Yes, as I've mentioned, every day I'll be bringing in something new. You know, we've got a long way to go. This was just amazwibela, like, you know, sakala. It's just an icebreaker. Imagine on an icebreaker if we were able to just tackle a few things. In the long run, sizokwenza kanjani. Yabo. So, Umamshengu Utsinje, thank you so much for watching up until the end of this video. Please give this video a thumbs up. Please comment. Please also engage with me via comments. Ask me the question, okay? And again, guys, I appeal to you. If you don't understand something or you have the requisite capacity, please consult your attorney. I'm merely providing these services. I'm not your legal advisor. Okay, don't quote me and say Alwande said. At the end of the day, you also need to ensure that that person that is providing you with that advice, for example, so you'll be getting the best advice. But as I mentioned below, I have linked my email address. You want me to review contracts, that will be done as a fee, guys. It's work, it's what I specialize in. So I just want to tell you guys, commercial law is very broad. We can never finish this in one go, but so as time goes. Yabo. And thank you so much. Ngiyabonga kakhulu. And nje, I'll see you next time. Have a lovely day or night. Depends when you are watching. Or have a good morning. Umamshengu uthi nje. Bye bye and ngiyabonga.